and welcome to the Why We Age webinar. My name is Sarah Brando. I'm Director of Nutrition at BioAccelerator, and this webinar's theme is all about the different signs of aging, internal aging, external aging, and the things that drive both of these, as well as what is a normal sign of aging and what is abnormal, what amendments we can be making to our diet and lifestyles to age as gracefully and as healthily as possible. So let's get started. It's becoming common knowledge that we are living longer lives than in the past, but not necessarily healthier lives. And so what my focus is today is all about extending health span. Focus on lifespan, the number of years you live, but health span is how many years and what percentage of your life you live thriving, healthy, and able to undertake the activities that you want and do the things that you want to do. When we think of aging, a lot of people are more interested in the physical signs and how to prevent them. Graying hair, reduction in muscle mass, lower production of collagen in the skin, which translates to wrinkles or sagging skin, even dullness in the skin, age spots, thinning nails and hair. But people tend to worry less actually ahead of time about the internal aging that occurs, and that's really what's going to affect your quality of life a lot more. This means that you will have a lower immune system, reduced strength, health conditions become more prevalent as people age, everything from arthritis to increased disease risk, stroke, dementia, heart disease. The retinas of the eyes and the walls of the ear canal also become thinner with age, which affects sight and ability to hear. But again, there are certain things you can do to slow down or offset that. Normal versus common signs of aging are also important to understand. Just because something is common and we see it very prevalent in society does not mean that it is normal, that it should be occurring. So senility, while perhaps considered to be common, is certainly not a normal part of the aging process. Normal aging can be things like reduced sensitivity to hot and cold or to touch, some squinting, you can't maybe see as well, you're a little more tired, some mild forgetfulness, appointments, anniversaries, maybe some plans that you made, gray hair, thinning hair, decrease in muscle mass, lower energy. But abnormal aging would be things like loss of feeling or numbness, cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, which can lead to blindness, very, very easily tired, not just a little bit. Severe mood swings as well is an indicator of abnormal aging, or behavioral outbursts. Memory loss as well for more significant things in the person's life, like their address, their birthday, a close family member's birthday that they've always known, or a very important life detail. That's a sign of abnormal brain aging and potential risk for dementia. Also being frailty is an indication of abnormal aging. Some muscle loss for sure, but to become very, very frail, that is not somebody who's aging well and aging in a healthy way. Same thing with dramatic hair loss or deafness or blindness. Diet and of course, lifestyle are both related to aging. But what we're seeing now is malnutrition being associated the most strongly with accelerated aging. However, it's showing up in different forms. In the past, malnutrition typically meant you were very thin, perhaps very frail looking, you were not taking in enough calories to thrive. But what we're seeing now for the first time is malnutrition in the form of obesity or overweight, where these individuals are taking in an excess of calories. They're not in a calorie deficit by any means, but they're still malnourished on a cellular level because the foods they are consuming are not nutrient dense and they're not giving their bodies the ability to thrive. They're not taking energy from the food that they're eating and often staying hungry for that very reason. Epigenetics is an extremely important topic to cover, which I have briefly touched on in my previous webinars as well. So epigenetics is one way to consider it is the light switch of gene expression. So in the most simple way of explaining it, we can activate certain genes, turn them on and off like a light switch. Basically, when methyl groups are present on a gene, the gene is turned off and no protein is produced. Therefore, there's no transcription. That gene doesn't activate. You might carry a gene, let's say for breast cancer or for heart disease from your family lineage, but if you don't live a similar lifestyle to those who succumb to the disease, your risk is going to be significantly lower. And there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot that is within our control. The field of epigenetics was very encouraging to study because it teaches us that we are not a victim of our genes and that actually we have the power to make major, major changes that will extend our lives. It's the foods that we eat on a regular basis. So not the once in a while, maybe not so good food here and there. That's not going to do much. Same thing with occasionally eating healthy here and there. That's also not going to do much. It's what we're doing on a regular basis that leads to and drives these epigenetic changes, which either accelerate or decelerate the aging process of our bodies and brains. Neuroplasticity as well. So neuroplasticity is the ability to reorganize, think like plasticity, not like plastic, but like malleable, to reorganize neural networks in the brain, create new neural pathways. Also something that I touched on my brain optimization webinar. So these nerve cells are the building blocks of the brain and nervous system, and neuroplasticity is when the nerve cells change or adjust. We want this to happen in a beneficial way. There could be positive neuroplasticity where we're learning something new and retraining the brain, or not so positive neuroplasticity, like when we have responses to trauma. Things that we can do to slow down brain aging and create beneficial neuroplasticity are starting a new activity, such as learning a language, playing an instrument. These things are extremely beneficial for the mind. Commit to practicing it though and engaging as often as possible, and choose something that you find both challenging and interesting. Has to be both. If it's just challenging, you'll get frustrated, you're more likely to give up. If it's not interesting to you, you're not going to have the passion to continue. So find something that you've always wanted to do, even if you don't need to achieve fluency in a language, for example, or become a professional at whatever instrument you choose. Any little neuroplastic changes we create by repetition and practicing the skill over and over again are protective of the brain as we age. Omega-3s are also very important to slow down brain aging because our brains are comprised of 60% fat. The omega-3s play a very important role in the development of these neural networks and their function, and they're also the most important molecules for performance. If you have an omega-3 deficiency, you will not be able to show up and perform and thrive in anywhere near your regular capacity had you met these nutritional needs. We need them for the health of our cell membranes, for blood flow, for tissue growth, for our memory and our cognitive abilities, even the communication between neurons and our neurotransmitters, how they function. And of course, because of all of these things, we also need omega-3s to prevent neuropsychiatric or neurodegenerative, so Alzheimer's, dementia disorders. Good sources of omega-3. Chlorella is one of the top ones. Chlorella is a blue-green algae. This is something that I take regularly. It is one of the highest protein foods on the planet, actually, followed by fatty fish. That is a great source of omega-3s. However, with all the contamination in the world's oceans, microplastics, xenoestrogens, mercury, PCBs, you don't want to be overdoing it on the fatty fish, and you want to be very mindful of where they are sourced from. Seaweed also is a great source of omega-3s. So the first four, spirulina, it depends on the source. It can be a great source of omega-3, or it can be a very poor source. You're going to have to check with the individual company. But the first four are marine algae, marine omega-3s, and those are going to be the most beneficial and the easiest to absorb because they show up in the form of DHA. The others here, the flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, these are all fantastic sources of ALA, but the body needs to convert it. So it's a little bit less easy to convert, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done. It can be done, and these are very usable sources, but I always recommend making sure that you're getting some from the sea for maximum absorption and to not worry about running into a deficiency, especially if you're on a plant-based diet. Optimal learning strategies. So you've got your omega-3s covered, your nutritional needs are met. Now let's talk about how to optimize the brain for anti-aging and to learn the best. So what research has found is that short bouts of intense learning are the best for adult neuromodulation, for changing your neuroplasticity and your neurochemistry. So you incrementally extend your focus, creating more of this plasticity and training yourself that actually you can extend. So you pay attention and you focus to something for as long as you can. And when you think you can't pay attention anymore, push yourself a little bit further. You just created neuroplasticity. You taught yourself that you can learn and pay attention a little bit longer than you thought you could. And you build upon that while also building upon what you're actually learning. So as you follow this with an intense relaxation, you're also going to cement the learning even better. So intense focus, intense learning for as long as you can, a little bit further, then you relax and you take in what you just learned. What you can do for your relaxation relaxation period after. It could be a brief 20-minute nap, not 2 or 3 hours, very, very brief, or some other sort of relaxation, maybe a little bit of breath work, some quiet meditation, some quiet time. Don't do the Instagram scrolling or try and take in new information, reading a book. Just find a place where you can relax and allow your mind to take in what you just learned and to cement that learning. Exercise is possibly the most important factor in the aging process. Of course, as a nutritionist, I'm always going to be very, very adamant about a healthy diet. However, as our brains and bodies age, exercise is a non-negotiable. It cannot be skipped. It is important for physical fitness, for mental fitness, for different pathways and procedures to occur during the body, throughout the body, during the life cycle. We need to be getting adequate exercise. And what research has found, the top exercise for anti-aging is actually resistance training. So if you do resistance training a few times a week, that's fantastic for you. And that is one of the most beneficial things that you could be doing in your routine, while also, I hope, eating a very healthy diet. A lifetime of regular exercise, according to numerous studies, slow down aging in the body. So in this study in particular from the University of Birmingham, it was published in 2018. They took a group of older adults who had exercised their entire lives versus a group of adults of about the same age, and also younger adults who did not exercise regularly. They found that those who were regularly exercising actually appeared to have defied the aging process. So they had the immunity, the muscle mass, and the cholesterol levels of a young person. They actually were biologically younger. Also, the study showed that loss of muscle mass and loss of strength did not occur as they aged in those who exercise regularly. So this idea that as we get older, we're going to become very frail and we're going to drop all this muscle. The research doesn't indicate that, but that will happen if you do not stay active. So this one is a very interesting statistic that I really wanted to share. Calculations, and these are coming from the Harvard alumni study, they have suggested that men who exercise regularly gain about 2 hours of life expectancy for every 1 hour of exercise. That is an amazing exchange. 2 hours life expectancy for 1 hour of exercise. However, the study also found that less than half of adults over 65 do even enough of the baseline exercise to stay healthy, and more than half of those people suffer from at least 2 diseases in the US. So can't emphasize enough the importance of exercise. You do it regularly and you gain about 2 hours of life for every 1 hour of exercise. So amazing, amazing trade-off. Overeating is something else that is important to discuss while we talk about longevity. When we're constantly eating, our cells don't have a sufficient resting period, and this in turn accelerates the biological aging of our bodies, affecting our epigenome, epigenetics, our gene expression. You can be turning some things on, some of these light switches that you do not want to turn on. So one way to combat this overeating is to skip 1 meal a day. And by skip, I don't necessarily mean cut back your calories. For some people, that might be a good idea. But if you are meeting your caloric needs and not trying to lose weight, it's just about the timing. It's about shortening the window. So for some people, it's better if they skip breakfast and they start eating around noon. Some people who are hormonally sensitive and drinking coffee instead, this isn't going to work. They're better off skipping a late dinner. In a perfect world, we actually wouldn't eat after dark, because as our bodies start to produce melatonin to make us tired, our digestion slows, and also our gut bacteria and our circadian rhythm are linked. So we do not want to be consuming lots of food after the sun goes down and we are producing melatonin. That's the time to relax and get ready for sleep. But with typical Western lifestyles, sometimes in the winter, it's dark by 4:30 p.m. It's not always possible to not eat after dark, and that's where we make different adjustments. But for longevity, it's great if you shorten the window within which you're eating. Another option is once a month, skip a full day of eating, where you just take the day off, and that is going to reduce your total intake for the month, put your body in a fasted state for the day. 3 days of fasting, however, activates really great longevity benefits via autophagy, which I'm going to talk about. When you do eat, it is very important to nourish yourself and to make food choices centered around maximizing nutrition. Sometimes when people do a little fast or they take a day off eating, the first thing they run to is some fast food, some pizza. They want some quick calories. They want some quick, what they believe to be nourishment. That is the worst thing you can be doing. So you want to support these biological processes that you're undertaking through fasting while also getting in maximum nutrition. Autophagy is the body's way of cleaning out dead or damaged cells in order to regenerate new, healthier cells. This is an extremely essential biological process, and it's basically just how the cells clean themselves. Toxins accumulate in the cell, they build up, and this process allows our bodies to repair and recycle damaged components of the cell. This can only happen though when we are in a fasted state. So if you are somebody who's eating constantly, you will have a midnight snack, some people even wake up in the middle of the night and eat, you are impairing your body's ability to clean out damaged cells. If toxins start to build up in the cell's genes can actually become permanently altered, which means that the cell cannot repair itself. When this occurs, it can't grow the necessary structures it requires in order to survive and to thrive in the body. So the two types of cells that are the slowest turnover rates, which means they stay with us for decades. First one is our neurons. So that's the brain and the nervous system. And the second one is the cardiomyocytes, which make up our heart muscle. These take a long time to regenerate and repair. And so we have to be very mindful to keep them in good, healthy condition. So types of fasting that we can do. These are kind of the 4 common ones in society. So first one's intermittent fasting, then water fasting, juice fasting, and prolonged fasting. Intermittent fasting is the most accessible for most people. It's very low risk. You just have to try and be consistent. This is what I mentioned about shortening your eating windows. So try eating only within an 8-hour window, and you choose the window that's right for you, and you fast for the other 16 hours. You consume only water or no calorie liquids when you're in this fasted state, and this doesn't have to affect your caloric intake. You can actually get amazing benefit from it while still eating the same amount of calories as before, but just in a shorter window. A little bit more intense, we have water fasting. This is from 24 to 72 hours. So this is an intense fast that is going to burn more fat. You want to consume about 3 liters of water per day without any food. You can do this while traveling as well. I love to encourage patients to do this while traveling to other countries, because with every 5 hours of flight time, you lose about 1 liter of water. If you're on a water fast, you're going to be very mindful of keeping your water intake up. And also traveling is very stressful on the body. The high altitudes, it's not great to eat up there. They also give food with about 30% more sodium because our taste buds are a little bit numbed at such a high altitude. And also typically when people travel, the food they have access to, unless they brought it themselves, is not the best. So when you're traveling, I definitely recommend that's a great day to do a water fast if you're comfortable with that. More than 3 days, I don't recommend water fasting for without medical supervision. There can be health risks, especially if you have any health conditions. And also after 3 days, we can see some muscle wasting as well. So 24 to 72 hours, you'll get great benefit there. After even the 16-hour mark, glucose in the cells and glycogen in the liver and the muscles, they begin to dwindle, which causes you to burn stored fat in order to keep up with the body's need for energy. Juice fasting is another common one. This one is not as intense and therefore not as thorough of a cleansing endeavor as a water fast. This is drinking fruit juices, but without fiber. So not a blended juice. It has to be like a cold press extraction where it really is, it's strained. There's really just liquid left. So you do this for the same period, 24 to 72 hours. This is lower intensity than a water fast. This could be a great way to start off to introduce yourself to the concept of fasting while still taking in some calories, but giving your digestive system a break. You want to have at least 2 to 3 liters a day plus water. This can reduce your inflammation, improve sleep, clear skin, reduce cravings. So it can still have a lot of benefit. I personally don't recommend fasting with a lot of fruit juices. This can spike your blood sugar. It'll make you feel hungry. I recommend doing it with green juices. So like a celery, cucumber, sprout blend. That should be a good way to go. There's also prolonged water fasting. This is extremely intense. This is something that should only be done under medical supervision. This is when you go for more than 72 hours. More than 8 days, I don't recommend at all. But this does create deeper cellular regeneration and detox, of course, than the other methods of fasting, simply because it is longer. This promotes weight loss for sure, reduces abdominal fat, reduces blood pressure levels, even if you're already in a healthy weight. And it doesn't actually impact your metabolism negatively the way calorie restriction does, which makes it the most interesting. However, important to note that all of the weight loss and all the benefits you experience from water fasting is only going to last if you use it to segue yourself into a healthier diet. This will work because pathogenic bacteria, the bad bacteria that cause lots of cravings and make us want foods that are not so good for us, quick sources of energy, these bacteria, they tend to die off a lot quicker than the beneficial bacteria. So by fasting, you can actually change the composition of your gut microbiome very, very quickly, and you can set yourself up for an easier transition into a healthier lifestyle with less cravings. However, if you're just going to go exactly back to your old lifestyle all over again, while it's still more beneficial than not to undertake some controlled, safe fasting, you're not going to maintain those same benefits, especially visually, physically, for weight loss and things like that, if you don't change your diet afterwards. There are many anti-aging benefits of fasting, which is why it was very important for me to cover that here. These anti-aging pathways are activated by fasting, and it also decreases oxidative stress in the body, increasing your lifespan. So oxidative stress is a state that we enter when we have too many free radicals in the body, which is another term for toxins, and not enough antioxidants. Antioxidants encapsulate free radicals and remove them from the body. We need antioxidants for this very, very important task. If we don't have enough, we end up in oxidative stress, which is not a state that you want to be in. Fasting in older adults actually was shown to decrease their frailty, keep their brain sharp, and also lower IGF-1 levels in the body. IGF-1 is insulin-like growth factor 1. It's a hormone naturally found in the blood. So it manages the effects of growth hormone within the body. We need it for functions like tissue and bone growth, especially going through puberty, growing up. We need IGF-1. It's very, very important. However, if IGF-1 becomes too high, an individual ages quicker, and it also increases their disease risk, especially things like cancers. One of the most common ways people are raising their serum IGF-1 levels is through consumption of dairy products. So I'm not a huge fan of promoting dairy for most people. I think that they can get all the nutrients from other sources without raising their IGF-1. High protein diets have also been associated with an increased risk of cancer and also early death. This is related typically to the IGF-1 levels in relation to high animal product diets. Developing slower is indicative of a longer, healthier life. Growth hormone is pro-aging. We need that in certain stages of the life cycle to grow, but some adults actually take growth hormone for the temporary benefits, but they don't think of the long-term detriments. You will in the short term have smoother skin, you'll be able to pack on muscle, you'll definitely temporarily feel better for most people, but it does come with risk and it shortens lifespan. The body's HGH levels naturally decrease with age. So there was sort of an online trend in, let's say, the blogosphere, where some anti-aging experts, so to speak, were speculating or even going as far as to make actual claims that HGH products and taking HGH could reverse the body deterioration that is associated with the aging process. However, these claims are totally unproven, and they focus very much on the short-term benefits I mentioned, while completely ignoring the long-term risks, which can be everything from nerve, muscle, joint pain, edema, which is fluid retention, swelling, carpal tunnel syndrome, skin numbness, tingling in the body, high cholesterol levels, increased risk of diabetes, of course, and it also can contribute to the growth and the accelerated growth of cancerous tumors. Also, increased risk of cardiovascular events, and of course, potential for a shortened lifespan. Ultra-processed foods is also something that accelerates the aging of cells. Ultra-processed food consumption can actually shorten telomeres. So telomeres, if you've ever seen a picture of DNA, these are these caps, these proteins found on the end of chromosomes. And older people with shorter telomeres, you want really long protective telomeres. If they get shorter than average, they have about a 3 times increased risk of dying from heart disease and 8 times increased risk from dying from infectious diseases. So keeping our telomeres long and strong and avoiding DNA damage through ultra processed foods is extremely, extremely important for longevity, especially processed meats. So that'd be things like hot dogs, deli meats, some burgers, anything ultra processed, certain chips, fried and hydrogenated oils, candies, just things that don't look like anything found in nature anymore. Processed cheeses, artificial flavors, artificial colors are very prevalent in these foods. Collagen production, as far as visible signs of aging goes, is one of the most beneficial things for fighting the visible signs of aging. So that would be wrinkles, sagging skin, dull skin. Having collagen plumps the skin up. It helps people to look young. So if you want to boost your body's own collagen production, things that you can do aside from diet, cryotherapy, believe it or not. I know there's some research that still needs to be done to see all the benefits of cryotherapy because there's a lot of bold claims there, but it does appear to be great for collagen. Same way that ice baths are as well. If you don't have access to cryotherapy, then a plain old ice bath will do. Intense cold boosts collagen production, but in normal small amounts, not prolonged exposure to the cold, which can cause a little bit too much damage. But in a controlled form like cryo or an ice bath, that can be great for collagen. Also, high dose vitamin C. So some research has found that 1,000 milligrams a day can boost collagen production, but that's extremely high. The recommended daily allowance in men is about 90 milligrams, about 75 in women, and 35 milligrams additionally if you're a smoker. Now, if you are a smoker and you're watching this because you're concerned about DNA damage, cellular damage, and longevity, one of the most important things you can do right now is stop smoking immediately. That will age you from the inside out the absolute quickest. So if you do want to do high doses of vitamin C, just making sure that you have enough zinc and amino acids will allow you to intake that high amount. However, if you take more than 400 milligrams of vitamin C in one day, and you're not making sure that you have enough amino acids, enough healthy protein sources in your body, then this can actually be a little bit detrimental. So when we get into very, very high amounts, it's even more important to make sure that our overall diets are meeting our needs. 1,000 milligrams per day. I have a list here from Whole Foods. You would have to eat most of that list to hit that number. Red pepper is actually one of the most vitamin C rich foods in the average person's diet. Red peppers have about 152 milligrams for one. So really, really, really high. Whereas something like a lemon, which we'd associate with vitamin C, only has 31 milligrams. I love to take superfoods because superfoods allow concentrated forms of vitamin C to be taken, as well as super aminos. This is a great product of pre-digested plant proteins. I advocate for whole food-based supplements. I think that those are always going to be the highest quality and the most absorbed and bioavailable because they have enzymes and cofactors, whereas a lot of synthetic extracted stuff does not. Vitamin C is extremely important in order to prevent cognitive decline and brain aging as well. It's not just good for the skin. It's a powerful, powerful antioxidant that is protective against depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's disease. We also need antioxidant-rich superfoods. Now, this term kind of gets thrown around a lot. So what is a superfood? A superfood is basically characterized as something that has more than the typical amount of nutrients, antioxidants, and benefits compared to standard foods. Nutritionists, when determining what a superfood is, also look at the calorie to antioxidant ratio. So how much of it do you have to eat to get a ton of benefit? And if you have to eat very little compared to conventional foods and you get a lot of nutrients out of it, a lot of antioxidants, then that is a really, really great trade-off. So you want to look for these foods that have a lot of antioxidants. Some of them that are actually the best and least thought of are herbs and spices. Turmeric lattes, Italian seasoning on your food, just sprinkling a little bit goes a long way. You don't have to eat as much of these, which is what makes them a superfood. Clove, cinnamon. If purchasing cinnamon though, look for Ceylon cinnamon. This is real cinnamon. A lot of the cheaper cinnamon sold in stores are actually cassia, which does not have the same antioxidant benefit at all. And some people actually have a little bit of an inflammatory reaction to it. So try and go for Ceylon cinnamon, especially organic. Other really beneficial antioxidant-rich foods are sumac, acai berries. Acai bowls are great as long as they don't have a lot of added sugar dumped in. Cacao, which is the raw chocolate powder, not processed cocoa. Tart cherry juice concentrate. I take this every night before bed. Wild blueberries. So wild berries are always going to have more antioxidants than even organic and especially than conventional. And for the most benefit, try and get as local to you and as seasonal as possible. It'll have the most nutrients if it didn't travel too far. Also things like elderberries, cranberries, blackberries, kidney beans. Think things that are bright and pigmented. These are great antioxidant sources. The highest antioxidant food in the world is called astaxanthin. This is actually a seaweed, but that is a great thing to take. I take one called superxanthin. And this is great after a workout as well to help regenerate. I love it for athletes. It's also great for sun exposure as well. It can reduce the skin sensitivity to the sun with regular use. So we love antioxidants and we love superfoods. Also, focusing on healthy plant-based meals, of course, because antioxidants, where are these coming from? Plant foods. So there is no one particular exact diet that we see that is perfect for everybody. If we look at the blue zones, we have some people living and eating one way, and the blue zones have the most people living to 100 and beyond, and also thriving, still able to pass cognitive tests, still able to extend their health span where they're doing the things that they want to be doing. But what they all had in common is they were on what we would consider probably a relatively lower protein diet, especially compared to the standard American diet. Even the Seventh-day Adventists, one blue zone in California, they weren't consuming any meat at all. But the focus was always on healthy, vibrant, varied plant-based foods. And the foods were different everywhere. So it's all about diversity we see. That's one of the common threads that leads to a consistent result. Diversity of plant-based foods, locally grown, and full of antioxidants. And even in Japan, Okinawa, one of the blue zones, one of their dietary staples is a purple sweet potato. So clinical trials and epidemiological studies on aging found pretty consistently that those who eat plant-based foods are 50% less likely to develop chronic diseases that present themselves during aging, type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease. So by consuming more plants and less inflammatory foods, then it seems that the dietary patterns all indicate you're on track for lower disease risk and longevity. Another question I commonly get, what is the best type of meat? This one is a little bit tricky because it's not so simple. It's not as simple as turkey or chicken or beef or bison even. It is just whatever you have access to the highest quality of. What can you get that is truly organic? Watch out for marketing terms like free range, which just means the animal isn't in a cage. It doesn't say anything about their welfare, any drugs they may have been given, the quality of it. You need to make relationships with local farmers, and you need to prioritize, I can't emphasize this enough, quality over quantity. So eating much less animal products than the standard American diet and making sure that they are well sourced, as locally and drug-free as possible. And that's going to be your best bet. Fish is commonly believed to be one of the cleanest meats because it's light, it's white meat, but with the state of the oceans right now, we are seeing a lot of environmental contaminants. One thing to keep in mind is that the larger the fish you eat, the more contaminants it's going to have. They build up at every trophic level because the big fish eat the smaller fish, they eat the smaller fish. So something like a sardine would have extremely, extremely low levels of toxins, and something like grouper or tuna, swordfish, barracuda, shark, they have much, much, much higher levels. So back to our telomeres. These are the caps at the end of our DNA strands. So without telomeres, the DNA strands can become damaged. They're not able to properly carry out functions, and the human body is constantly regenerating through cell division. This is when cells replenish by copying themselves. So we need the telomeres to protect our cells from premature aging and from cellular death. Every time a cell copies itself, the telomere actually shortens, but the DNA stays intact. So eventually, through repeating this process over the entire life cycle, the telomeres become too short to function, and then we see cellular aging and reduced cellular function. The most common ways people are shortening their telomeres, so this is not what we want, is acute and chronic stress, living very, very stressful lifestyles, not understanding the real impact of maybe that job they have, that relationship, that friendship, that family member they're in contact with, leading to chronic stress is actually aging them and increasing their disease risk. Also, smoking, as mentioned, one of the worst things you could be doing. Consuming alcohol on a regular basis, being obese or overweight, not exercising, not eating a healthy diet, living in a very, very polluted city. Oxidative stress, so that's that state where we have too many free radicals, too many toxins, not enough antioxidants. Chronic inflammation in the body. Prenatal exposure to tobacco. So this is, as an adult, something you don't have a lot of control over, unfortunately. So you're going to have to work harder in other areas to repair any DNA damage and really nourish your cells. And of course, lack of sunlight. We're seeing an epidemic of lack of sunlight because individuals have been trained to believe that they are safer sitting inside all day and slathering themselves in sunscreens, which are often very toxic, just to go outside and be in the sun. So we do need sun exposure. You do not have to go outside between peak hours of 12 and 2. Get some sun exposure in the morning or a little bit later in the afternoon, but don't skip this step. We need vitamin D for our hormones as well. Wound healing is actually faster with significant exposure to UVBs. So when people have more sun exposure naturally in the longer days of spring and summer, their wounds actually heal quicker. And hair cells as well. So hair cells are actually given rise through stem cells. So stem cells actually create our hair cells. And so when we have faster turnover, that means faster growth. And actually having the sun exposed to not only our skin, but also our eyes will trigger faster turnover and therefore more hair growth, as well as skin turnover and nails. More things that damage DNA, radiation, don't take unnecessary x-rays. EMF exposure, something you can do to mitigate EMF exposure is actually to unplug your Wi-Fi at night. Believe it or not, this does have an impact. Not have your phone too close to your body at all times. Avoid wearable devices. I know watches and rings and things that track bodily processes are really popular, but you are constantly exposing yourself to EMFs, which can damage your DNA in excess. Smoking, as mentioned, I'm going to mention it all the time. Air pollution, again, poor nutrition. Fast food, ultra processed foods, especially those processed meats, and chronic inflammation in the body. Living in a chronic inflammatory state, which is usually a result of too much of these things, will damage your DNA and create unwanted changes. While we do need some inflammation, it's important to understand the two types. So we have chronic inflammation, which is from poor lifestyle choices. This is something that lasts for months, years, even decades, and is the precursor to most modern diseases, unfortunately. Acute inflammation is the good type. We want that. Acute inflammation is a short-term process. Occurs as a response to something. So a tissue injury, which could be you just worked out, or it could be you cut yourself or you pulled a muscle. So it's going to come in and appear right away through pain, redness, swelling, heat, inability to move in that particular area. But if your immune system is functioning, if your white blood cells are doing their job, then this is a temporary and natural process. If you have too much chronic inflammation, however, the acute inflammatory process will be prolonged and healing will be slower. Just like if you don't get enough sun exposure, healing will also be a little bit slower. So we want to keep our inflammation levels low. We do not want to have chronic inflammation in the body, so that when we are faced with other exterior threats, it could even be bacteria, viruses, mold, whatever it may be, that immune response can come in and take care of things, and our acute inflammation will be natural. It won't be prolonged. What you eat is one of the most important things. Every bite you eat is either going to feed inflammation or fight it. So avoiding all the things I mentioned, the processed foods, especially the processed meats, fried foods, things with trans fats, hydrogenated oils, chips from the store, cookies, sugars, sweeteners, especially looking out for high fructose corn syrup. This is something that's in a lot of sodas, jellies, jams, fake syrups. Excess animal products, so too much meat, dairy, and eggs, especially from non-local, non-organic sources. There's going to be a lot of detrimental things added to those foods by the animals consuming different pharmaceuticals and stuff that they're given, or an unnatural diet. Also, vegetable oils, margarine, and refined grains. Refined grains are terrible for blood sugar. This is like your processed white breads, some cornmeal, white flours, things like that. A few more science-based longevity tips. So following a Mediterranean diet. Now, modern day Mediterranean diet has kind of been shifted where all of a sudden it's really heavy in olive oil and really heavy in animal products. But the traditional Mediterranean diet, back when these studies were done, were very, very high in plant-based foods with some local meats, some local seafoods, and some olive oil, but certainly not in the excess that we see today. So it's what we would consider a plant-forward diet. Also, stress management techniques can actually increase your lifespan through breath work, meditation, and yoga, whatever practice is going to work for you. Also, spending time with loved ones and laughing. Believe it or not, this can have an impact on our telomeres. Just overall, having joy, having laughter, producing serotonin, and creating these moments where we feel loved and we feel cherished and we feel like we're part of a family or a community. That's something else that was really prevalent in the blue zones as well. To repair damaged DNA, fasting, as mentioned, it works really well. Meditation and breath work also are great for repairing damaged DNA, believe it or not. Saunas and steam rooms, great detoxification tools, especially if you want to get some brushing, dry brushing going on while you're in there. Cold plunge, Cryotherapy, great for collagen too. A plant-focused or plant-forward diet. Regularly moving the body, getting your exercise in, especially resistance training. Antioxidants, omega-3s. Avoiding toxins in personal care products. So what are you cleaning your house with? What are you putting on your body? Can you opt for a more natural, clean version? Does that company use things like artificial fragrances? Also, high vitamin C intake is great for repairing damaged DNA. Just make sure that you're getting enough amino acids, you have balanced proteins and a good diet. And finally, sunlight. So those are all evidence-based longevity tips. This, of course, was just a little quick preview. There's a lot more to longevity science than this. I'm going to be doing a part 2 in the future as well, but hopefully this is enough to get you started and to make some mild to moderate lifestyle changes that will allow you to have amazing cellular health and hopefully live a longer, happier, healthier life with an increased health span, not just lifespan. So thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you next time.